case I forgot to say, I'm not going to read it. It's really Simba's story. My son was called Simba. He was born in Zimbabwe in 1982. When I went out, married a lovely Zimbabwean, and we all came back here in 1984. And so I've been interested actually in what you're saying about poor people, because my son was not, well, I was a teacher, a head teacher for 32 years, and he wasn't poor. I mean, he didn't get what he wanted. He thought he was poor probably, but he wasn't. He managed to get 4 A levels with A's, amazingly, and he got a 2-1 degree at King's College, having switched universities halfway through because his girlfriend came to London. So he was sort of potentially a high flyer, really, very, very intelligent and unbelievably lazy. So he got all that without any effort, really, on his part. I never heard one thing from the university, nor any of his friends, actually, about the onset of some very worrying sort of paranoid ideas. When I went to pick him up from the final place that he was living in, I couldn't believe his stuff. We nearly had a crash on the North Circular, because I said I was going to take all his stuff and put it out in the garden. And he said I couldn't do that. And I thought, why not? And then it appeared it was the FBI, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger, it was God knows who else was going to see all the stuff in the garden. I think he spent a year sort of on smoking skunk. He was living in Brixton in a flat with a girlfriend and several other people, all of whom I think also participated, but seemed to have had some sort of restraint in themselves, and he obviously didn't. So he sort of was at home for a bit, and he was working and things like that, and then he had a major breakdown, and pigeons were talking to him and all sorts. And it was like a complete revelation. So he spent some time in the inpatient ward in Bury St Edmunds, which is where I live, and that's where he found out where to buy drugs locally. So when he came out of there, having been quite innocent about all of that in Bury St Edmunds, he then, he had all the contacts. And he decided to come and live in London with his dad, made himself intentionally homeless because he moved out of accommodation he'd got. We hung on because we thought he might get somewhere to live. Homelessness came up. He was in a hostel, which in Southwark Bridge Road, which was designed for people with mental health difficulties. So on paper it looked lovely, a little flat, it was all painted up and looked nice. There was a little kitchen with a fridge and a cooker and stuff, no cooking equipment. The man on the other side of his passageway had a thing about doors, and every time he left a door closed, he would open it. Simba referred to him as the shouting man because he shouted all the time. I think it was David. And if you closed the fridge door or anything in the kitchen, he would just open them all again. Took plugs off things, he removed and Simba had a kettle, because I bought him a kettle so he could make a cup of tea. Couldn't use it in his room because it fused the power. Couldn't use it in the kitchen because the shouting man would go out there and remove the plug. I mean, in terms of, on paper, it was a place where you could cook, you could do your own thing, but in actual fact, it was a room, and it was quite nice, and some of the people there were quite nice. I mean, I could go on about things.
So it was unsupported?
It was supposed to be supported, but the support gradually sort of wore down. Anyway, he was sort of over a period of 8 years with community health, in and out of hospital. In 2012, when the Olympics were on and everything in London was fabulous, he was in and out of the Muzira hospital 3 times in a period of 8 weeks. I now realise that that's when the big divide between addiction services and mental health happened. So in the hospital, they wouldn't talk to him about his addiction problems. They sort of dried him out, 10 days, he was fine, went out, did exactly the same, lay in front of police cars, kicked police cars before they took him back into hospital, because he wanted some help, didn't get any. They did that 3 times. It was just, and then he went off, that was when he went to another hostel, he was a graffiti artist, potentially a good thing. He got a spray can and he wrote, "Do you want me to die?" in huge letters all across the wall in his room. He was too scared to use the bathroom and the toilet, so he used his sink. It was vile. And 3 months after that, when he went back there, the mental health specialist in that homeless hostel said, "We've seen no signs of mental illness." I mean, anyway. So he he did eventually use the addiction services, but hardly at all. He was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, although in the inquest, I was surprised to find that they thought it might be bipolar. So I don't know, but he had at various times taken every substance you could think of, stuff he picked up off the floor, stuff that people gave him. He never had any money because he was followed down the road by petty drug dealers who would take his money. He got a cheque, he paid it into cash converters, they took 25% commission or something because he thought the bank was stealing his money. If he was around now, he'd owe about £3.5 million to some payday loaner, I think. By the time the interest all piled up, they used to phone me up and I used to have a go at them about, all that stuff. I had 3 points I wanted to make, better get on with it because Jane's not done her bit yet. But he did at one point go to an addiction service, and the reason why he went is because he had this lovely, lovely psychologist who worked with him for 10 months, consistently, kept on about goals. It's the only time in his sort of youth after he left school that he ever had any goals, and he kept on at him, and he wouldn't let him give up. He was kind, he talked to him like a person, he related to him. He kept coming back, no matter how rude Simba was, he was always there. He talked to me about it. He persuaded him to go, and then he got another job and was not replaced. He talked about family therapy. We couldn't get family therapy. So my number one point would be don't give up on people who, we were talking about motivation. I am a long-standing Weight Watchers member, and I really like cake, and I've eaten a piece of cake today. I've got biscuits I've taken to take home on the way. It doesn't mean I don't want to lose weight. It's a different thing, but so it's about not giving up on people because they are messy and untidy individuals, particularly if they've got mental health problems. Number 2 was, sorry, I just have to remind myself of what I wrote down. We talked about it. I put yourself in your shoes, and I thought probably that's not a good idea, but not literally, but the housing problem. When Simba did turn up to an addiction service, he was too scared to go back because of all the drug addicts who were standing in a queue at the beginning of the day. And I said, why can't you go later in the day? And he said, I can't wait till then, I've got to go in the morning. Because he got up in the morning with an element of, I'm going to do this, but by the time the day had drifted past, he'd lost it. And he was literally, I went with him on one occasion, but I live too far away, I couldn't do it. And like the whole home, the house he lived in, the supported living, just wasn't what it said it was. So imagine being yourself and walking in. That's why I'm talking about a more welcoming or an easier access place maybe is what some people need. And the third one is being repeatedly said over and over again today, mental health and substance misuse. I honestly don't see how you can treat one without the other. If you've got them both, it's mad to be treating one in hospital and then treating one somewhere else, because it's the same person with the same two things. And self-medicating, somebody talked about. If I had been Simba in that horrible hostel with a shanty man on the other side of the wall, I would have been thinking, I think I'll have a drink and we'll get through the day and I'll start again tomorrow. If on top of that you thought that, because there were fireworks going on outside, that there were bombs going off and you were the only person in the world who could go and save everybody, it's mad. And you're wanting people to go out and say it. I keep hearing what you're saying, and I think, well, I haven't done that, but it's just lunacy, really. So those are my 3 things. Don't give up. Put yourself in their shoes. Mental health and alcohol and drugs and gambling, everything all together.
Thank you.